I have somewhat of a bitter history with portraits. A love-hate relationship, if you will. In a recent email newsletter, I talked about the idea of seasons in creative careers. Seasons where you go hardcore in marketing, seasons of editing a whole new batch of YouTube videos, or seasons where you hide in your studio painting for hours and hours on end with absolutely no human contact. But I think the idea of seasons can also apply to the art itself. Seasons of only using a particular medium, only focusing on one subject, or honing in on a particular fundamental. One of the many seasons I've been through was my portrait season. But before we dive into that, it has come to my attention that some of you lovely people have sent the sweetest letters to my P.O. box, and I am just now, months later, finding them. I have the memory of a goldfish and kind of forget that checking your P.O. box is a thing. So if you are one of the lovely folks that sent something, I did receive it, and I am so sorry it took me so long to find it. Anywho, your letters absolutely make my day, and I feel incredibly honored when y'all share your art and your life with me, so thank you. Alright folks, buckle your seatbelts, it's time for a trip down memory lane. So during the 2010s, I was heavily inspired by artists like Bailey J, Sacco M's, Happy the Artist, the OG art YouTubers. And I was strongly in my Copic marker era. Combined with the moodiness of my teenage years and an obsession with high fantasy novels and an unapologetic attitude toward making whatever art I wanted to make, I created countless portraits of elves and warriors and fairies, etc. I did not care about creating cool backgrounds. I didn't care how odd or unrealistic the characters were. I didn't care that I wasn't quote-unquote expanding my skill set by studying other subjects. I was simply doing what I loved at the time. I wanted to make those pretty girl portraits, and that's what I did, without any regard for what anyone else thought. And let me tell ya, that kid was awesome. She didn't care what anyone else thought, and you know what? Good for her. However, somewhere between those unapologetically creative kids phase and the grown-up phase, we start to care a lot more about what other people think. So in the later 2010s, as I started shifting more towards making art a full-time career, I began to flounder. All of a sudden, the pressure to make art that people wanted to buy, rather than simply what I wanted to make, was immense. Enough professional artists pushed for me to add backgrounds instead of simply focusing on faces, so I thought more intricate backgrounds must just be a requirement for art. And as I started to share more of my art online and in person at craft shows, more and more people labeled those portraits I was making as weird, and I grew too self-conscious to continue. Although I loved making those portraits, they no longer felt like enough or like the right thing for other people, and I haven't made one since. So many years have passed since this season. I've grown a lot as an artist and simply as a person since then. I've explored new mediums, new subjects, improved my fundamental skills, found a love for gouache painting, a love for storytelling. I've developed a better relationship with creativity as a whole and really discovered more of who I am as an artist. But as I looked back on these portraits recently, I felt ashamed. Not because of the portraits themselves, well, a little bit. More so just looking back on them and going,
wow, have I improved since then?
I had no concept of facial anatomy, truly. But mostly, I feel ashamed of how easily I let other people stop me from making the art I wanted to make. I feel kind of bitter knowing that I stopped creating things simply because someone else didn't like it or didn't think there was enough to it. I'm much more confident now in the art that I'm making and much less concerned with what other people think. I think I understand now that my art isn't for everyone, and that's okay. I don't have to suit every taste, and I would drive myself absolutely crazy trying to. But I'm always talking on social media, on YouTube, in my newsletters, about how you need to build and nurture your own creative practice to make the art that you want to make and unapologetically embrace your own artistic tastes. And I couldn't do that. I let other people dictate what my creativity should look like. Don't get me wrong, I'm not beating past Allie up like,
Wow, what a loser. You gave in to peer pressure.
she was like 16 and was going through some stuff, so I'm gonna cut her a little bit of slack. But I can't help but wonder what would be different if I told the world no. If I said, I will make the art I want to make because it belongs to me and my imagination, not you and yours. Now, I fully believe that where I'm at in my art right now is right where I'm supposed to be. If I'd stayed on the portrait path, maybe I wouldn't have found the murky meadow and bits and bobbles. Maybe I wouldn't have ever picked up gouache. How tragic would that be? Speaking of the murky meadow and my gouache art, if you vibe with that, if you love these cozy little critters and their whimsical little world, I do have prints available of them in my shop. I firmly believe that walls were built for holding art that speaks to you. And I have a range of print sizes so you can build a totally custom storytelling gallery. From mini prints in the mystery grab bags to mid-size prints and of course 8x12s for my fellow art maximalists. You can use the code YouTube10 to save some dough on your order, and of course every order is Annie Jane approved. Anywho, back to the portraits. So I've been avoiding the 100 heads challenge for quite a while because I'd fully gotten it into my own head that
I don't do portraits anymore.
And when you tell yourself a narrative over and over again, you start believing it, whether it's true or not. But I hit a snag. While I don't paint portraits specifically, I do paint a lot of characters. Little card-playing mermaids, Gwen, the world-traveling photographer, a jellyfish enthusiast living in a submarine. And I've been realizing just how much I struggle to paint human character faces. I don't have a great grasp on bone and muscle structure, and don't even get me started on when the head's tilted at like a quirky angle. In my illustrations, painting the face is the part I dread the most, simply because I don't understand it. And that's when I realized I'm doing this to myself. If I would just take the time to break the
I don't paint portraits
narrative and actually learn how to do it, I could save myself countless hours of stress and confusion on future paintings. So when the curious creatives over on Patreon and Discord wanted to do the 100 Heads challenge for our quest, I realized this was the opportunity. This was the proverbial kick in the patootie that I needed to learn to love portraits again and learn how to paint them well. I gave myself the space to explore different mediums in the challenge, but I am putting a much stronger emphasis on using gouache. Let's be honest, it's my medium. No matter how many other mediums I love using, gouache is still my favorite and will almost always be my go-to for illustrations. So for the first 10 heads, I used graphite to familiarize myself a little bit more with the facial structure and the proportions, but for heads 11 through 20, I pulled out my gouache. My goal for this run of heads was twofold. Number one, to dive deeper into understanding the planes of the face, building off of the first 10 heads, and number two, to get better acquainted with painting those planes and blending my brush strokes. There's a big difference between drawing a head in pencil and painting one with a brush. Those facial planes may be the same, but the way you put them down is very, very different. A pencil and a brush are two totally different tools.
I know, mind-blowing, isn't it?
Not to mention gouache also dries really quickly and with a different value, which can definitely be a little bit tricky to control. So for this set of heads, I painted them monochromatically. I did some of them in grayscale, and others I picked a fun little color for. For the grayscale ones, I used my Knicker poster colors, and for the colorful ones, I used a mix of Knicker poster colors, Winsor & Newton, and these beautiful SUI gouache? Sui gouache?
Whatever this gouache brand is.
She sent me these a while back, and I absolutely love them. I'm not sure about the light fast quality, so I don't typically use them in my full illustrations, but for a sketchbook page like these, heck yes. Super fun colors, and not ones that I often see in other gouache sets. Anywho, I am so grateful that I didn't go in with full color for these. Judging by the absolute struggle I went through with some of them, I can't even begin to imagine how much I would have cried trying to paint accurate skin tones. Working monochromatically allows me to focus solely on the values and finding the shapes in a face without the hassle of color mixing. So we've chatted in the past about one of my biggest character flaws, and that is the desire to be immediately good at whatever I try. Now, this aversion to failure is not a great trait for the creative practice. Failure is a wonderful teacher and is very, very necessary for growing as an artist. So whenever I try something new, I try to dive into the hardest version of it. It's like starting a video game at the final boss battle. You don't have the right equipment to fight the dragon, you don't know what buttons to push, and you have zero attachment to what you're doing. You haven't built up your toolkit, your skills, or your commitment to seeing it through to the end. So when I jump into a creative project like this, and it inevitably goes poorly, I think,
Well, I'm just not cut out for this, I guess.
and I give up. Whereas if I'd started at the beginning where I should have and worked my way up, I would know how to use my tools and would be truly dedicated to giving it my best effort. And I am really, really proud of myself because I feel like I'm actually going about learning to paint gouache portraits in the right way this time. Working my way through each step of the process instead of just jumping right into full color gouache portraits. Are these great? No. I have so much to learn, but I have seen a lot of improvements along the way. They're small improvements, but they're improvements nonetheless. Improvements like learning how to better predict what values my gouache will dry at, learning how to find those plane shapes in a face a little bit faster, or learning how to exaggerate those planes and add some fun shape language of my own. I've also learned a little bit more about what works best for me when tackling painting a portrait. So at first, I tried painting the biggest shapes first, regardless of their value. However, along the way, I've discovered I'm so tired. I've discovered that painting in the darkest shapes first, regardless of their size, is actually a much better system for me. It helps me set my value structure very early on, and for me, that's a lot more important than covering a larger area of the paper, if that makes sense. All this to say, I'm really enjoying painting these portraits, and I'm excited to see how my skills will grow and develop and impact my full illustrations going forward. If you want to see the time-lapse painting process for 4 more of the gouache heads from this set of heads, I have a special YouTube video of those for the curious creatives over on Patreon. And if you want to join us for this 100 Heads quest, we would absolutely love to have you. We've all been sharing our progress in the Discord server, and it is crazy cool to see everyone's unique styles coming together to make some really awesome portraits. I'll be making a video for the last 2 heads in this set soon, and I'm very, very excited to share that one with you guys. I went way outside my comfort zone with those, and also brought in a little bit more color with them. They're definitely my favorites so far, and I hope you like them as much as I do. So let's do a quick little catch up before we say our adieus. Apparently it's now July. Not sure how that happened or where the rest of the year has gone. Anywho, summer is a very busy season for me as I volunteer at a lot of events, start planning and prepping for fall events, etc. But I'm very thankful to say that I've actually been able to still work towards my creative goals during this season. I'm making a lot of progress on the 100 Heads challenge, keeping up with my Merry Monday sketches, and I'll also be starting work on filling in the illustration holes, so to speak, in my upcoming storybook.
What's that? You didn't know about the storybook?
Well, you're most definitely going to want to sign up for my newsletter and watch this video because I'll be sharing a lot about that project in both of those places. So another one of my character flaws is that I tend to think I have more time than I really do and throw myself into 27 different projects at once and a 28th just for kicks. But I think I'm finally learning how to better balance different projects. It helps me a lot to work on one small project and one big project at a time. For example, working on the 100 Heads challenge at the same time as a full illustration. I can do a 1-hour head study and still have several hours to work on a bigger painting. Or lately it's been more working ahead on YouTube videos since I've been so busy with events. Now I know I said last year I was considering trying to put out a new video every week for 2025, and you may have noticed that has not happened. And I'm very grateful I didn't end up committing to that, because I do believe that would have been me slogging up the mountain of too much and falling face first into the snow. A video every other week really is the best system for me right now, and I feel like it also gives us some time apart so you don't get too tired of me. Or maybe you do, in which case, I'm sorry. I'm a little much for me too sometimes. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me about embracing your own artistic tastes, and I hope you enjoyed watching me paint these gouache portraits. Huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious Creatives over on Patreon for helping to support my creative practice. Y'all make it possible for me to continue making videos like these and doing super fun challenges, so thank you. If you're interested in another sketchbook session, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!